Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea, and today we celebrate the Nobel Prize. Okay, full disclosure, Darren Acemoglu with James Robinson wrote a book on growth 15 years ago. I've not read it cover to cover. It's like 800 pages, and I did what a lot of people did. I dipped into it, and I interviewed Professor Acemoglu on it, and it's all great and well, but I didn't read the book. I have read the books of Simon Johnson. Simon Johnson is a high-energy, kinetic economist out of Oxford, Manchester, and, of course, iconic at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And today to see Acemoglu and Johnson of MIT and James A. Robinson, Chicago, all writing together. There's a new book out from Acemoglu and Johnson. I'll talk about that here in the coming weeks. But for them to win the Nobel Prize, and the answer is why. They own the cottage industry of trying to figure out prosperity and technology. And yes, with A&I, it's front and center. But frankly, for these three academics, it's been front and center for decades. Simon Johnson on technology.
I think technology drives everything, Tom. You're well aware of that. And the question is, whose technology? Who has what priority? What's their vision? Is it an inclusive vision, or is it a vision in which only a few people have good jobs and everybody else is really scrambling? That's been super important over the last 250 years. We've had some good episodes and some really bad ones. And I think it's all in play again with artificial intelligence.
An extended conversation today with a gentleman from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He took his PhD with the iconic Rudy Dornbush. He single-handedly changed international economics and foreign exchange. We continued our discussion with Professor Johnson here on the path forward for prosperity in EM.
I suggest we think about it in two ways. One is the sort of deep history and recognize that we've all got these legacies that we're living with. And some of these legacies, particularly if you were colonized in a harsh way by the Europeans, that's a very tough legacy to overcome. But the second thing is, there's no predestination. It's all about the choices that you make, including technology that we just talked about if you're in the United States. But around the world, I would point to corruption. I mean, corruption's been, as you guys know, talked about a lot over the past 30, 40 years. But what do we have? We still have immense amounts of corruption. And there's two sides to that. There's the people who pay the bribes and the people who take the bribes. And that's a big part of what holds a lot of countries deeply in the poverty that you see today. But I think that the key thing, and it may just sound like a rhetorical device, Tom, but it's real, is focus on inclusive prosperity. How are you getting more good jobs created for more people, and make sure they can access those jobs, make sure they have the skills, make sure they're empowered themselves, and they recognize that. So the bumper sticker for me out of all of this is more good jobs.
Finally, Simon Johnson in this conversation, and I had to ask, of course, our John Micklethwaite speaking with Mr. Trump tomorrow in Chicago. Here is Simon Johnson lecturing at Sloan on tariffs.
Oh, look, if you want to blow up the world and the world trading system and really damage poorer Americans, slap a massive tariff on all the imports. Right. Because as you know, poorer Americans spend a lot on things that have imported content. So massive tariff war, terrible idea.
Right. The Nobel laureate, Simon Johnson. What an announcement today. We're out on YouTube. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast, growing every day. It's our new distribution. And once you get done your commute, see us on YouTube, at your home, at your office, and, of course, on radio around the world. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius. On the Corridor from 99.1 FM, Washington, where Professor Johnson took a tour of duty at the International Monetary Fund. In New York, our flagship Bloomberg 1130 AM, and in Boston, 92.9 FM. On YouTube podcasts, on Apple Podcasts. Single best idea.